Hello, happy holidays, and welcome to Bazar Holidays. This is a passion project for me. I have been attending holiday bazaars since I was in a stroller, and I've always wanted to tell the stories behind the booths. I've known that the Santas, the snowmen, the pieces of woodwork, and all of the unique objects hold such unique and wonderful stories that have just been waiting to be told, and this year I decided to tell them. For this first episode, I got to visit with Claire Houlding, who makes beautiful decorations out of wood. She invited me out to her studio in Camas, Washington, and it was truly a wonderful experience. I thought I had walked into crafter's paradise when I walked into her studio. She had made coffee and put together nibbles all on a tray that she had made of beautiful wood. Everything was pristine and perfect. And I hope you check out my social channels and the YouTube edition of this podcast where you can see for yourself the beautiful area where she makes her wares. I think it will make you just a little bit jealous, but I think it will also be really, really inspiring. So this is episode 1, where I'm close with Claire Houlding for these Bazar Holidays. I'm going to just snap some photos, and while I do, why don't you tell me the story of how this workshop came to be? And how did this amazing, looks like it could be on television space come to be?
It's actually a funny story because during COVID, with all of us working from home, with the 3 boys, a golden retriever, my husband, myself, we were just on top of each other all the time, and I had to pivot a lot with art classes because I couldn't teach them in person anymore, and decided to go online. So I was doing a lot of online teaching, and whenever I needed to record anything for a class or something live, I had to let everybody in the house know, you can't talk now, and I had to always do every single take in one take because I knew I only had so much time before something would go wrong with 3 boys and so on. So we thought, well, you know what, why don't we build a shed? And mostly also, it's so cold here in the winter and it rains. And that's also my busiest period is Christmas and Thanksgiving and fall. And then I'm always standing outside freezing in the rain and the snow, or have to wait for the rain to stop so I can run all the wood outside and chop the wood and whatever. So we thought, okay, let's make this workshop, first of all, to get me out of the house, because I'm obviously the problem. I'm the only girl in the house. And, if I need quiet, then maybe I should find somewhere else to be quiet. And also to have this as an arena where I can do all my wood cutting in the cold. And we spent probably about 6 months, probably less than, building it from scratch. It was a real learning curve to figure out even something as small as this, how many restrictions there are and what you need to do in order to get something like this built. And every part of it, from the base to the roof, had to be okayed by the city. It just became something that was a hobby, and it became so pretty that we now don't want to cut wood inside of it, and everybody wants it. So everybody wants to live inside here. So maybe if at some point it doesn't work out with crafts anymore, we can make this into the cutest little Airbnb, a little tiny home.
I am completely jealous of this space.
Yeah.
This puts, I think, most craft areas to shame. The people who are working in their garage or working at their dining room table, right?
Yeah.
This is pretty amazing. I love it. I'm detecting a little bit of an accent. Is that correct? So
Yes.
Tell me a little bit about your background.
So I am South African, born and raised, and I'm a pharmacist. So I worked as a pharmacist in South Africa for 10, 15 years in the rural areas, where you mostly go to people's houses. There's not enough doctors, so you know who you've got to sort out. You go and you treat people, all that kind of thing, and it was really rewarding. And then fast forward a little while, it became very politically unsafe, really, where it wasn't a case anymore of somebody who knows somebody who knows somebody who's been violently attacked, robbed, hijacked, shot. It now became 10, 15 people on the top of our heads, and we had a baby. And so we had an opportunity to come here. My husband's family is here, and we weren't going to do it. We kind of thought, okay, well, we've had a baby, we're settled, I'm working, he's working. And it just got to a point where the terror at night when we were hearing people trying to break into a house just got to a point that was out of control. And so we took the leap and we came over here, not with any idea of whether we were going to stay or go back. And during that time, we had 2 more babies. And then when I wanted to convert my degree to work here as a pharmacist, I was told it was too old. I would have to start from scratch. And ain't nobody got time for that.
Right. Yeah, totally.
When you've got 3 children and a busy life, I tried to convert, and it's medicine. So it's not like you can phone it in.
Right.
You have to concentrate, and just realized I'm going to have to wait on this until I've raised my boys and launched them. And what am I going to do in the interim? And my other passion is arts and crafts. And I had done that literally since I was 5. And everything you can imagine, like you were saying.
Yeah.
Love every craft. Got to try all of them.
Yep.
And so I was doing these for fundraisers and in the schools and for churches and whatever, always for a fundraiser. And suddenly somebody down in Camas said to me, hey, you know what? You do arts and crafts. I'm going to give you 2 days at the lodge. You fill those days with crafts, because people don't just want to wait until there's a fundraiser. So let it happen. So jumped in the deep end, and this is where it was born.
I love that. I think so much of this, harkens back to the child within us, right? When we start doing crafts. So you mentioned your family. You have 3 boys.
Yes.
Your company is called 3andMe.
Well, it's pretty crazy. I'm the pink and the blue world. Pretty big. We're going to lose one next year.
Yeah, so they're getting close to launch, as you put it. I like that term, right? they come back. Let me tell you, they come back.
Thank goodness.
So describe for me the craft that you do now. How do you describe what all this is?
I love to craft anyway, so I like to try all sorts of things. And I also love to be able to teach people how to craft. A lot of people say to me, oh, I'm not crafty, I can't do those. And those are my favorite people, because everybody has a crafty bone in their body somewhere. And so what I do with these crafts, mostly wood related. I also use other mixed media, but it's mostly wood. And I just cut shapes and make signs and a lot of custom stuff. So I want to be different to the run-of-the-mill, where it's not just you paint a sign with a random quote. You paint a sign or make a sign that has your details on it, right? So you actually come away with a piece that has a good memory attached because the experience was a good one. You came away with it successfully, and you actually want to hang it in your house.
Right. Yeah, and they're gorgeous.
Thank you.
Everything. I mean, everything around here is beautiful. How do people react to your work? How did people start reacting to your work, where you realized, wow, this is something that actually resonates?
I guess people just kept on asking, hey, can you do this for me? Can you show me how to do that? And for myself, I think it comes as well that if I want to learn how to do something and I go to the craft store, there's very seldom someone there who can tell me how I can take my materials and get to the end result. And so I think I like being that connector where people will say, this is my vision for something. Can you help me make it? And I think it is very different. There's nobody else who offers exactly what I do. And I like to add the mixed media element. So it's not boring. It's not that you've already got this in your home. I've designed it. It's unique. And if you like it, amazing. I'm so glad you do. And you can put your own spin on anything.
Yeah. So to that vein, sort of describe for me your crafting process. How do you approach it?
I just look at the things that I like, things that I think are useful, and I like functional art. So like a tray that I can actually use, right? Or a sign for my front door that I can use throughout the year. Or, for example, now seasonally, a Christmas countdown tree, that I can change the date on, or a box that I can put things in, or make candles. So I like functional art. And so I usually look around and think, what could I use? What do I want in my home? And maybe other people want that too. And then I'll offer it. Sometimes I'll just make it for a gift for someone, and I'll put it on social media, and people say, hey, I want to make that. and then I offer it. I mean, every now and again I've offered something that nobody's liked. And then you're like,
what?
okay.
What could that possibly be? What kind of things?
They didn't want a lantern. I made this gorgeous lantern.
Okay.
It was this chunky wood lantern with 4 pieces, very authentic, organic, a big lantern made out of 1x1s.
Uh-huh.
And nobody wanted it.
Really?
Yeah. And
I do it.
Yeah, come do it.
Oh, yeah.
So the feedback was it looked too complicated. And actually it was fairly complicated.
Okay.
But, I take you step by step. I think to this date, and I've done this for 7 years officially, there's only been 2 crafts or 2 people that have come to me where they've so disastrously failed. I've had to give them new materials. But other than that, I mean, out of 7 years and thousands of classes, I think, people generally come away with something usable.
Woodworking is not something that at least in my vein, is easy to pick up, right? So, where did you learn that you could cut out these amazing trees that I'm looking at, or, make these amazing signs, or this tray? Where did that come from?
It came from the fact that I'm inquisitive and I love craft shows. And I would go to these craft shows and I would see people make these beautiful things out of wood. And at first, I would ask people if they sold just the wood so I could buy the wood to practice on. And I was so amazed, when people said to me they cut it themselves, and I would go home and say, oh, wow, this woman cuts her own wood. And so it just got from my husband's as inquisitive, and he's very, he's very technical. So between the 2 of us, he was like, okay, I want to buy a wood cutting machine. We'll just buy one and we'll see where it goes with us. And then from there, it was just building on, then from cutting the wood to staining it, painting it, learning how to stencil, and just growing from there until we've got to a point now that I have a couple of laser cutters, so like a glow forge, and with that I can actually take the text that I ordinarily would have stenciled and I cut it out in 3D. And now we've got the whole 3D factor where we can make trees and words and boxes and all sorts of things.
Talk to me about the beginning. What were the hard parts about getting started with this?
Oh, that's easy.
Okay, the hard part's easy. I like it. I like it a lot, yeah.
I am so hard at marketing. It gives me hives to think, the whole social media piece, the whole part that I have to sell myself, I find that very difficult. I can very easily say to you, hey, I bought this new product or this new recipe or whatever. It is amazing and I can convince you that you need it too. But when it comes to me and my own products, I really struggle. And I think it might be because of my pharmaceutical background, where we weren't allowed to tout our business. It was, if you're sick, you come, we fix you, and that's it.
Right, you're not promoting Tylenol or something.
Exactly,
right? Yeah.
Exactly right. So
Yeah.
now I have to promote. And I think I'm quite shy in that way, and I don't want to blow my own horn. Mm-hmm. So it's very hard for me to put out there, you need to do this. This is perfect. This is ideal.
What keeps you at it? What's your motivating factor every day when you come out to this amazing workshop?
The joy that I see in people's faces when they've made something. I absolutely love it. I love going to classes and giving people a set of supplies. And at first I see the panic in their eyes that says, I can't do this. And just to convince them, but you can, right? And I make it an experience. So when I set it up, it'll be like a banquet. I want you to come in there and feel like you are in a safe place, that you are about to have a fantastic experience. You've come with friends or with children or your parents, and I just want people to be able to connect with each other on a parallel level, where you're not sitting across from each other trying to find words, but you're busy making something and you're making memories while you're chatting to someone next to you. And there's no stress reaction for most people when they look at crafts. It's like, I haven't done this before, so it's new. So there's no learned pathway. That's anxiety. And I've made so many friends out of customers, which is incredible. It's humbling.
Yeah, I mean, and especially in this world, it's hard to make real life friends, right? But with crafting, you kind of have to come together in person, right? It brings people together.
Yeah.
What happens within you when you feel that? What are you feeling inside?
Sometimes sometimes stress when I'm trying to come up with a whole lot, like now, I've got to come up with a whole lot of new things and hope something fits. That the things that I come up with that I might absolutely adore making might not be something that people want to make. And then I know my heart is on the table because it's my creative, it's just everything inside of me that's sitting on the table. And if you stomp on it, it hurts my feelings.
It's vulnerability.
It's being vulnerable. But I just love to craft. I mean, there were many times during COVID I thought, I'm not going to survive this. The business can't survive in these times. I'm just going to throw in the towel. But then because I'm so crafty, it's, but wait, I want to do this one more craft, right? And then I'd make that craft. And I'd have people say, hey, I want to make that too. So every time when I think, I'm going to throw in the towel, I make something that I love just for me, not because I want to make it for other people, just for me, just to enjoy the process. Because, when you're painting and you're not distracted, and then, if people love it, I'm happy.
Yeah, so you touched on a couple of things there that I want to delve more into, and we'll start with COVID. What was the impact of COVID on you and the way you craft?
Wow. I love to craft with people in community, right? I think when I was little, I watched Gone with the Wind, where when all the guys were at war, the women were sitting together at a table sewing and crafting, trying to while the time away. And that connection between them while they were doing something together. I love that. I love having people do things together. And during COVID, obviously, we couldn't. And so I pivoted during COVID into going online. And it was really lovely to see faces on the other side of the camera who were also dying to connect but couldn't connect in person, but we could connect online, which was great.
So tell me about the connection. Were you doing the same craft? Were you just chatting? What was happening?
Did the same craft. Obviously, I made it into an art kit. So I would take what I would have taken to a class. You would pick any design that you wanted. I would package it up, put all the paints and the brushes and the instructions. So it meant having to make a blog post for each kit that I made with photos, step-by-step instructions. And I want people to come away with it loving it. So I want to be as clear as possible and prevent the pitfalls. So when they're done with it, they're like, I did this.
Right. How do you balance? I'm confronting this right now with my own craft kit that I'm creating. And how do you balance giving instructions that guide to the completion of a craft, but also allow for sort of that creative liberty and the ability to sort of like discover within yourself as you're doing it?
I do give lots of examples. So I'll say, okay, this is the way. So sometimes there's only one way to do it. Like this box has to be put together this way, right? And then every step is the way I have instructions. But then I have so many choices. So you have your choice of whatever you're going to do, and you have the choice of colors, right? So you can put it together in your particular way.
The thing about crafting is you do it with your hands, right? You're engaging your hands. And there's something that happens between your hands and your mind and really your heart when all three of those are engaged.
Yes.
What is that? What happens when we engage our hands?
It connects somehow to your heart and soul. Somehow that connection of making something with your hands to distract you from the stress that you might be feeling somehow rewires you. Like in a circuit, where you've got your circuit and the light bulb goes on if you've connected it right. Same thing. If you're connecting the craft pieces right, it just feels good. You have the sense of achievement afterwards. Plus, you've got the memory of having had, even just if it's an hour, to do something other than something stressful.
And now, outside of COVID times, coming together with other people. Yes.
And that has been a lot of feedback that people have said they've been so lonely. And they've been, especially the older generation, who had to be particularly more careful with COVID. A lot of them were very isolated. I had one really beautiful story where we had just got back into doing in-person art classes, and I was doing it restaurant style with everybody at their own table, unless they were coming with a person they were safe with, and then everybody was 6 feet apart. So we were in the same room, everybody with masks on, but everybody 6 feet apart from everybody else, right? Unless you were saying you were coming with a friend. And there was this older woman who came, and she was seated by herself. And there was another younger woman who came who was also seated by herself. And the older woman said to me, if the younger woman is comfortable, will she sit with me? And I asked her, and she said, absolutely. And those two sat together, and then they booked more crafts together as a team. And I thought that is exactly what I love, is connecting people.
Right. That almost brings a tear to my eye. I love it. It's so great. Okay, so you mentioned that one of the hardest parts for you about this whole thing, when it comes to selling and getting people to be aware of your classes, is the marketing. So what have you sort of dialed down as sort of your elevator pitch, or your one-liner pitch about what it is that you are offering?
I think I just offer creativity attached to memories, art experiences that leave you feeling like you've had a good time and you want to do it again. And it empowers you. So, it's all ages, all skill levels. There's nobody who can't do it, except those two people. But
there's always those two, right? There's always the two.
Yeah.
When you think about the crafting process, just for you personally, what is the most important part?
The process is important to me. The process of getting from raw materials to a product I love, and that feeling of achievement when it works out. And I'm a perfectionist, but also I'm short on time. So it's like it has to work out first time, or I might get a bit frustrated, or I'll just have to tweak it and try again. But I do think things through properly, and then when it works out nicely at the end, I have such a sense of achievement and fulfillment.
Yes, you mentioned time. When you've got three kids, a busy family life, how does crafting fit in? How do you make time for this? Because clearly, looking here, you make time for it. So where does that time come from?
Well, they are all at school all day, right? And because I can't use my profession here, this is my new job. So this is my full-time job now. And so it is my 9 to 5. Well, actually, because I'm self-employed, it's my 24-hour-a-day job, right? So I can't step away from it ever. Like, we'll be sitting at dinner and I'll think to myself, I need to do this, or I can fix it this way, or always problem solving.
Are you like me when you have like endless notes in your phone about like ideas hit you at the grocery store, or
yes.
like while you're driving, you're like, oh gosh, I don't want to forget this.
Yeah, you take a photo.
Right.
Thank goodness for the iPhone.
Yeah. Yeah. It drives my partner crazy.
Or in the middle of the night.
Oh, totally. Yeah.
Yes. I'll wake up and I'll think, that's how I fix it.
Oh, I have been known to get up and like start it in the middle, and like 2 a.m. I'm like paper cutting felt or something,
yes,
right?
I know. Yeah, when you're, and it's true, like when you're not thinking actively about something, and it's the same, you can't think of somebody's name until 2 a.m, your brain just processes it. And the same with crafting. You've problem solving. I'll go into the hardware store and I'll have an idea like that wooden paper holder that I wanted to make. And in my mind, I had an idea of how I wanted to make it. But it's not like I can go into Home Depot and buy the kit. It's having to come up with the concept of how do all the pieces fit together. And this poor man at Home Depot, I was saying, I need a rod about this long, and then I need a thing that has a thing on it. And he was just looking at me, what do you want to do with this? I didn't even have the proper names for like an animal.
Oh God, that hits home so closely. I do the same thing. When you go to a store, are you like, because when I go to a store, I go up and down every aisle because I consider it a creative exercise,
yes,
right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, you do the same thing.
I now have the aisles that are my favorite aisles.
Okay.
I know that I'm not going to use it, I'm not going to go into certain sections. If I'm not going to be baking that day, I'm not going to go down that aisle. But you never know. I've found baking shapes in the baking aisle that I've used for pouring, concrete.
All of this, everything I'm looking at, everything we've talked about so far, comes out of your own creativity and your own imagination. How do you put your creativity and your imagination imagination into words, how would you describe it?
I think creativity is something that we've all got in one way or another, and the way that you exhibit it is totally up to your environment. You know, if when we were in South Africa, we never had big craft stores and things like that, so your creativity was on a different level.
There was no Michaels, there's no Hobby Lobby.
No. And so you would be making other kind of crafts. Now here, when I look at this and I think, if we had not come to the US, there would be a lot of crafts I wouldn't be able to do because it's not available anywhere else. So for me, creativity is just seeing something, being inspired by it, and actually making it happen.
How has your crafting evolved since the time you were a kid? Because, and I ask this question because, like, and I think you relate to this, is like, I also crafted as a kid all the time. We made, like, keychains for our backpacks or whatever, but, like, obviously as you age, your crafting evolves. So what has that evolution been for you?
My sister and I always loved to draw. So we would always draw books. And we used to listen to audio tapes. I remember us vividly sitting on the floor. We never used to sit at a table. We'd always sit on the floor, lie on the floor with our pencils and our crayons and, you know, draw stories, you know, make storybooks. And then my mother is very creative. And she cooks and bakes and sews. And so through her, we would then want to sew. So we learned to sew clothing for our Barbie dolls. You know, we learned to knit, and we knitted little blankets and jerseys. And it just got from that point. And then, you know, we'd find pine cones and we'd make them into pine cone humans. And so we were very creative, both my sister and I, guided by my mom a lot, actually. And now as I've got older, I want my crafts not to look homemade. I want my crafts to look professional. And so I try really hard to, you know, meet the middle between it looks too professional, as in it looks like it came from a machine, and it looks homemade, handmade. It needs to look handcrafted.
Ooh, I love that. Handcrafted. I like it a lot. I picked up on what you said there because obviously I'm a storyteller. That's what I do.
Yeah.
I've been a storyteller all my life.
Yeah.
And I think crafters are storytellers, right?
Yeah.
So what story do your creations tell?
I think my creations tell a story of there is such good in life and there's happiness to be found in life. You know, when things get you down, there is something you can do to get your mind off things. You know, for some people it's a run. You know, for some people it is cooking. For some people it's a nap. I know when I lie down to have a nap when I'm stressed, my mind switches on to full ball and then forget the nap.
Yeah.
But if I feel stressed or anxious and I make something, and often I find giving, like if I make something for someone who's going through a hard time, the love that goes into that project I make helps me settle my own mind, right? Helps me just deal with whatever I'm going through in my life, because I think the greatest joy in life is to give. And so giving your creativity away to someone into something that actually they're going to like, that makes me happy.
Right. For me, it's ingenuity, right? It's opening your mind to what could be possible.
Yes.
And then making it possible.
Absolutely. Like you can't find it in the shop and you think, okay, well, I'll make it then.
Right. Crafters are doers.
Yes.
Yeah, we don't stand by. We jump in and figure it out as we go, right?
Don't you love that saying which goes, why buy it for $20 if you can buy the craft supplies for $97 and make it just like
I love that so much. That is so true. It's so dangerous for me to walk into the craft shop. I always walk out. I always say, like, I'm not going to get a basket. I'm not going to get a cart. I'm just going in for one thing. And then by the time... Big mistake. Right, big mistake. And I've, picked up a wood crate or a basket that I'm now using as my cart. It's ridiculous.
It is, yeah.
I want to talk about the holiday time in particular. And what is special about this time of year and crafting?
Well, at this time of year, it's cold and people need to find things to do. And the fall and Christmas period, the winter period, is a time where we have to go indoors in order to stay out of the cold. And it's where we want to do things with family, because Thanksgiving is all about being thankful, right? Thankful for each other, for where we live, you know, just sharing that gratitude with people and the blessings. And Christmas is about also connecting with family and coming together. And so crafting during this time of the year is always popular just because you bring your people, bring your best friends, ladies' night out, bring your husband.
Boys' night out.
Boys' night out. In fact, it's so funny when I do kids' birthday parties, how often the dad gets involved. It's like, you actually want to be crafting too.
Right. They become heirlooms. It's what you don't pass down what you bought at Target.
No.
You pass down what somebody made.
So I always say to my people in my classes, I want you to be successful at this craft because I want your kids to fight over who gets it one day.
That is perfect. I love that so much. That's great. How do you describe, for someone who has never experienced a holiday craft bazaar, and especially from your experience of like coming to America and this, bazaars obviously have existed for centuries, right? They're marketplaces.
Yes.
But the American holiday high school gymnasium craft bazaar is something truly of its own, right?
Yes. I love it. I love the fact that people have the courage to be vulnerable and bring what they've made and they've enjoyed making in order to sell to other people. I love craft bazaars because I always buy something from multiple people just because their heart and soul is in it. It wasn't made in a machine somewhere in a different country. It is handmade in America by Americans, and they just want somebody else to enjoy what they've handcrafted. For me as a small business, when somebody comes to my booth and they like something and they buy it, it's like I do a little happy dance in my head because my heart and soul is going away with that person. That person's taking an hour of my life with them, right? And to me, that is so special. For us makers, to see people enjoy what we've made and appreciate it. I had one of the signs, my husband and I made it together. It was a map of the United States framed, and it was in hardwoods. So it's a whole bunch of different hardwoods that we'd put together and puzzled together. And I mean, that map was big, and it must have taken us days to put together. A lot of people would come and look at it and they'd ask the price of it, and you can't really value it, right? Because so much of our time has gone into it. Then eventually a man stood there and he kept on circling back and he said, I know exactly what's gone into that because I do crafts as well. I want it on my wall. And I did such a happy dance with that one because I thought, I'm so glad he appreciates what went into it.
It went to the right home.
It went to the right home.
I love that. To do a little cliche play on words here, what is the most bizarre part of a holiday bazaar?
Some of the things that I see made and I think, oh.
Like what?
I know, I can't go into detail. Bazaars are just fun. Bazaars are meant to be bizarre. You've got all shapes and sizes of crafts. You've got every person. Everybody's included. Nobody's excluded. It's actually great to connect with people and speak to them. Every now and again you have people who aren't very friendly, but by and large everybody there is open-minded. How can you be sad at a holiday bazaar?
Every bazaar needs a Grinch though, it's okay that there's,
Oh, yes.
Okay, so some quick fire questions here to wrap things up. So quick answers to these. What makes a holiday bazaar good?
The vibe.
What kind of vibe?
Like a happy jingle, sort of everybody's excited for the holidays. It's that magic of Christmas.
What would the holiday season be like without a holiday bazaar?
Oh, it would be dull. It would be lacking something because you wouldn't have these beautiful elves who've made all these beautiful things to sell you their homemade time.
The beautiful things, but every once in a while there's a questionable item here. That's what makes them bizarre, right? Right. They're beautiful to someone. Right. Yeah. What is your favorite part about the holiday season?
Oh, I love the magic. The magic of Christmas. Even though my boys claim not to believe in Santa Claus anymore, I still stay up late on Christmas Eve. Don't tell my boys this. Boys, if you're listening at this point, turn off. I stay up until midnight or beyond, just to still give them that whole Christmas magic.
What is the most bizarre or the craziest or the strangest part about the holiday season?
I think people trying to outdo themselves and put themselves in debt, or just think that the holidays are about anything other than loving the people you're with. And you don't have to make an impact on buying them expensive things. I think just your time. I think giving people the gift of your time and something small and meaningful, most people would way prefer that.
I want to thank you for the gift of your time.
Thank you.
For inviting me to your workshop. I feel like I have visited the North Pole or some magical place. I feel inspired. I feel so lucky that I got to talk to you today and to experience this place. I'm really, really grateful for you having me out here.
Oh, thank you so much for asking me. It was a pleasure being interviewed by you.
Thank you so much. And Merry Christmas.
Thank you. You too.
It really was such a joy to chat with Claire in her gorgeous studio, and I hope you check out her website. And she's also on Instagram at the exact same handle. It's 3and.me. That's THREEAND.ME. That's her website and her Instagram handle. And if you are in Southwest Washington or Portland, or you're planning to visit the area, sign up for one of her classes. I just happened to walk by one of them that she was having near my house. I was out walking my dog and saw her through the window, and it was great to see her again just a few days after our interview. She was holding a class at one of the local wineries, and it looked like so much fun. Everyone was in there painting and having a great time during this holiday season, so I know you won't be disappointed. I've got several more great interviews with makers coming in the days and weeks ahead as we go through this holiday season. It has been really special to hear how the crafting community really creates community in our area, not just during the holiday season, but really all year long. So thank you for listening, and I'm looking forward to sharing more of these conversations with you. Until next time, when we are close together with this Bazar Holidays.